Hello. How are you this week?
Good. It's been a crazy week with the holiday. And then Rob and I had a date night during the week because we did something
Ooh.
called dining in the dark.
Oh, was it like a specific event during the week only? They
Yeah,
didn't have.
so it is. So it's put on by this company called Fever,
Okay.
and they do it all over the world. In our area, what they do is they travel to different locations, use different chefs, but it's a three-course menu, and you get to choose between vegetarian, the meat option, and the seafood option, and then all three courses are unknown to you. And so you go into the experience, it's dark in the room, you wear a blindfold the whole time, which is really, really funny. Like trying to eat, the amount of times my fork went to my mouth with no food on it. I just wish I could have watched everybody, especially Rob, like actually physically eating because he had a lot on the floor after. I had a lot on the table. Uh, but you essentially try each dish and then they'll tell you what it was, which is really
Oh,
interesting. Like one of the dishes or the appetizer was lamb tartare, which is raw, which I didn't even know you could eat lamb raw, but you can. It was just really fun. It was something different. I don't know. We're trying to do it was for my birthday technically, but we were just trying to do some new stuff and it was something that's been on my radar for a while. It's just hard to go to because it always happens on a weekday
mhm.
and we're very much on a schedule during the weekdays, but we made it work. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. You both are very much like you'll eat anything.
Mhm. I know. I don't know if this experience is for you. It's fun. I don't know if you would enjoy it.
I don't think I would because I'm way too picky.
Yeah. I don't know if you would eat raw lamb.
No, I would not eat raw lamb. Did you do like the meat or the veggie one? Like which one did you pick?
Me and Rob both did the meat one.
Okay.
They told us what all the courses were, and the seafood and the vegetarian both sounded really good
Mm.
to me.
Yeah, like if there was a chicken option, maybe. But the whole point is to like
Hmm.
taste your taste buds.
Not know
Yeah.
and try something new,
Yes.
which maybe
Yes.
could be good for you.
It could be good for me.
I also feel like I'm getting sick again. I
Oh,
don't know if it's because I've been out of my house the past few days in the public, and of course, when I do that, I always get sick. So if I sound stuffy, that's why.
oh, well, hopefully you're not sick for long because
Yeah,
that's never fun, especially
no,
going into spring.
I know
Hopefully
we're
warm
not.
weather
Why?
soon.
Why? So what about you? What's going on?
Um, we had our first encounter with daycare today, which was scary. I kind of like I knew that this was coming up and like Axel was going to be starting daycare and like that's what we had planned and it's just it didn't really hit until it actually like happened today because we have been moving. We've been purchasing a new house, selling our house, like all these things have been going on and the last thing I had on my radar was daycare. So he started this week. Austin is not fully back to work yet, so we're like kind of slowly transitioning him. And today was not the experience that I thought I would have as a mom, first time mom at least. We walk in and we're like meeting the teachers or whatever, and Austin puts Axel down and he just immediately starts crawling over to the other kids. Doesn't even look at me. I turn around and he already has a toy in his hand. So I'm like talking to the lady, talking, making sure I have everything, like communicating everything, telling her about his giraffe and, whatever. And so, long story short, he was not impressed. Like or he was not phased by mom and dad leaving or even noticing that mom and dad were gone at all. I tried to pick him up to give him a kiss goodbye, and he just kept looking to the floor, like to the other kids. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. I thought I would be sad. I thought you would be crying. And so I was very much more emotional, like driving there, like
Hmm.
ready to drop him off. And then the way he acted, I think helped me keep it together.
Yeah.
Because if he would have cried, I probably would have like,
Okay, we'll try again tomorrow.
yeah,
That would have been me. I'd be
yeah,
like, okay,
yeah,
cancel work this week.
yeah. Well, and thankfully he only went from like 7 to 1:30 because
Yeah.
Austin was off. So he went and picked him up, and he didn't really nap. He was too fixated on what was going on, and I think he's still in the mix between infant and toddler, so they're trying to figure out which room he'll be in. And yeah, it was interesting. So we'll see
Yeah.
how the rest of this week goes. We're going to go 3 days this week, and then we'll see what next week brings.
Ooh, so scary. Just so scary. Like, I can't imagine having to drop Eleanor off somewhere
With people you don't know.
with people I don't know. And I texted you, I'm like, do they have cameras? And you said no. And I'm like, oh
I know,
no.
they have, like, an app to update you, like, "Oh, this is when they changed their diaper, this is what they ate, this is pictures," and nothing was
hmm
working because I was still new in the system, so I did not get that. She said she would write it all down. Well, I asked my husband, "Okay, what happened while he was there?" He didn't ask any questions.
Oh my gosh.
All he got was, "He didn't nap." I was
Oh,
like,
jeez.
"Okay, tomorrow, I'm asking what happened."
Yeah, like, did he eat?
Typical Austin, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you have to let me know how it goes as it progresses. At least you don't have the anxiety of like dropping him off and him just like having a meltdown. Cause I feel like that would just be so
That
hard.
would be so hard. And I'm grateful that Axel is like that, but I don't I'm like, don't you want to be upset? Don't you
Yeah.
like want to miss your
I want to
mom?
know what he was like when he saw Austin, like
Oh,
at one.
I had him videotape, or not videotape, but he had me on FaceTime. So you
Yeah.
can walk through and you can see them through the window, and he had it up on FaceTime, and Axel was just standing up. It was like a pillow thing or something. He was standing there looking out the window, sitting next to this other kid, and like, I'm like, okay, keep me on the phone when you walk
hmm
in. He walks in, and he turns and like smiles and like goes to Austin, and like he shows me on the FaceTime that he was like smiling and waving at me. But that was it. Like, he wasn't like, oh
hmm
my gosh, like my dad is back. He was just
Yeah.
like, okay, I guess I'm gonna go with dad now.
I wonder if he'll ever get stranger danger, if he's just the type of kid that's just going to be so chill and fine.
He must be. I mean, last night, though, he woke up at 10, 11, and 12, like screaming,
Ugh.
just like someone was hurting him. So I thought, like, maybe, okay, maybe we're teething, but he was just hungry, just wanted milk. I'm like, I couldn't get him to calm down. And all he wanted was me. So Austin will hold him and he'll just scream louder because he just wants his mom.
Mm, yeah.
So he's not, you know, all calm all the time. Okay. Not
Yeah.
all babies are like that. Disclaimer.
Yeah.
Should we dive into our episode?
Let's do it. What are we talking about?
We're talking about TTC, which is trying to conceive, and the emotional journey of infertility.
We are. Well, welcome to the Mom Era podcast. My name is Megan.
And I'm Alyssa.
So, today we're talking about trying to conceive and the emotional journey of infertility. I did a short bit of research on this and like easily found that 1 in 8 couples are affected by infertility. They said about 9% of men and 11% of women are affected. And then it was 1 in 6 globally, and that percentage does increase with age. So that's a large population that is
Mhm.
affected by
And I want
this.
to say, I remember it was last year or the year before that when they came out with that new update where it was 1 in 6 instead of 1 in 8. And that was like a big number and a big
hmm
change for everyone that was in the infertility community that was talking about it.
hmm
So it's kind of scary where everything is trending nowadays, and how prevalent infertility is in the US and even globally. Infertility, I looked up an actual definition so we can explain it, but it is a disease of male or female reproductive system where it's defined that after 12 months of trying to achieve pregnancy or more, having regular unprotected sexual intercourse, you are unable to get pregnant. I love that they put the 12-month mark because why 12 months?
I don't know, because I think what I read, and I don't know how outdated this statistic is, but I did read that most couples are able to conceive, or it's like 80% by 8 months. So I wonder if it's just a percentage thing. So, like, if you hit that 12-month period,
Yeah, it might be.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, even like after 6 months, I feel like there's a lot of questioning that sometimes people have where they're like, okay, is something wrong? But there really only is a 20% chance that you can actually get pregnant each cycle.
That's so low to me. Rob was saying the other day, because we were talking about trying to conceive, and he was like, it seems like nature didn't make it very hard to get pregnant. And I was like, I don't know if I agree with that. I was
Like,
like, like I felt like it was kind of hard for us.
like maybe when I was 18, it probably would have been a lot easier. But yeah,
Yeah,
and I don't know if that has to do with people are just getting married and having kids later on
yeah.
now, but I think there's still a large population that are affected by it. I think
Yep.
what we want to do now is kind of dig into our experiences with trying to conceive and infertility. For some background context, I did have trouble conceiving and I had to go through infertility treatments to have Axel. And Megan, you had an experience with trying to conceive too. So, yeah, we'll dive into our personal experiences and go from there.
Yeah, let me jump in first. So, me and Rob, in the beginning, we were like, okay, we are ready to have a kid. And in the beginning, it was kind of the mindset of it's going to happen when it's going to happen. And I did some minor tracking in the apps. I think the major ones I used was Flow and Premom. I think you told me about the Premom one.
Yeah, Prima.
hmm
Prima's my favorite.
Yeah, so I think I was just using Flow in the beginning until I talked to you, but I was just putting in my period. So I wasn't doing any testing or anything like that for ovulation. I was just tracking my periods and just getting like a guesstimate as to when I was ovulating and what do they call it? Baby dancing around that
Yes, baby dancing. Oh my god.
time. And then I think I connected with you not long after and told you, you were like one of the only people I told that I was trying to get pregnant. And you had talked about the ovulation testing. And so I ended up buying the pre-mom kit, or the Easy at Home was the box I had gotten, and using the pre-mom and starting to actually test the LH to see when I got my surge. I wasn't very good at it for a while. um,
It takes a lot of
it does.
consistency.
It takes a lot of consistency. You have to test it like twice a day. And yeah, so I wasn't very good at it first, but it did give me a better idea when I was ovulating.
Can
Now,
we pause and go back to that conversation when you told me that you were trying?
yeah,
I'm sorry, this is just like a great moment. So, I think you brought it up first, or did I? Yeah,
I
no.
think I brought it up to you first. Yeah.
And you were just like, "Hey, we're trying to get pregnant, blah blah." And I was like, "No way. We've been trying to do it like not
You
no."
didn't tell me immediately because I talked for a while. So you must have been debating in your head as to whether or not you wanted to like tell me. And then like later on, you're like, I have something to tell you.
Ah, well, 'cause it's kind of awkward to just be like, "Hey, we're trying to have a baby."
Yeah, I did it. I'm
I
like,
know.
it's
You were more confident. Okay, back to the ovulation
yes.
steps.
Yeah, so nothing was really working. I think honestly the turning point for us, and I just want to say this because I think there's a lot of pressure when you want and are ready to have a baby. And actually I would say there's two turning points for us. The first is Rob's dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And so Rob and I had a conversation about like really trying to have a baby instead of just being like it's going to happen. We're actively trying, but we were like we're digging our heels in. We're going to do everything we can to try to get pregnant. And then you also brought up the Mosey baby, which isn't a cheap option, but it's an at home insemination kit. And it was nice for us because it took a bit of the pressure off. But we also weren't sure at this point if we did have some type of fertility issue. So it was a nice product that we could lean on that just gave us additional help. So after it took like 3 cycles after I really honed in and tested my LH levels, knew when I was ovulating, baby dancing on all the high fertility days. And it's really interesting because about that point, it had been like a year of quote unquote trying. And the cycle I was pregnant with Eleanor, I was like, I'm not even going to test. I even told you, I was on the phone with you, and I'm
Yep.
like, I don't feel like seeing another negative test result. And so I was like, I just don't want to. It was the day before I was supposed to get my period where I was just like, maybe I'll test. So it was 12 DPO. I hadn't tested at all that whole cycle, which is very unusual for me because I usually hit like 8 days past ovulation and start testing religiously. So I was 12 days past ovulation, haven't tested once, was very much like, this isn't happening. Like, I'm out this cycle again. And I saw that positive line and I was like,
You're like,
what? I was like in disbelief. I just like had my mouth hung open. I just was like staring at myself in the mirror. I turned like white and red at the same time. And then I took another test, the one that says pregnant on it. And I was like, oh. So then immediately, because I had already purchased from Etsy a shirt for him and a onesie for the baby, and I like stuffed it in a box with the pregnancy test, and I gave it to Rob and recorded him opening it, which was like so awkward, and it wasn't a like he's like, why are you recording me? You know, it's not like we record each other, so it wasn't like a natural response, but he was really excited. And the rest is history. And then I was just worried
sorry,
for
I can just see him sitting there. Why are you recording me?
he was just like looking at me. And he was like, "Really?" Like playing
Oh.
for the camera because then he was like, "Oh, this is why she's recording me."
Yes, yes. Well,
Oh man.
mm, it's just amazing how our stories turn, right?
Mhm.
Oh, I need to like recover from that.
I know. I'll have to show you the video one day. It's very awkward. I like watched it the other day. I was like, "Oh, this is such a nice moment, but it's also just awkward." That's why I don't understand like influencers and people who like record themselves and and their spouses. I'm like, "How do you ever get a
How do you get the
actual real
real reaction?
response?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I would go to like try to record Austin because I documented our infertility journey just for my family and close friends, he would be like, "Yeah, we went out to eat today."
Yeah. I remember
Okay,
that.
no, what else did we do today?
I liked when you guys would like I don't even remember the videos, but you would just like talk about and he would have lines, and he would just be like straight faced, like saying his lines.
Yeah.
And then you would come on and you'd be like, la 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 la. And he would be like, so we have 8 eggs. And I'm like, at least he's a trooper.
He would literally, before I started the video, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to be in it with you? What am I doing? What am I saying? I can't go on here without you telling me what to say. Oh, okay.
Oh
I'm
man.
crying.
Uh,
Um, so anyway, I'll dig into my experience. So we started trying in March of 2021. My brother was due with a baby in May of 2021. So we like originally had started, okay, we've been together X amount of time. We were ready to have a baby. And we're like, oh, my brother's having a baby in May. Perfect. We'll start. They'll be close in age. This will be great. And I had researched so much prior to trying to get pregnant. And I don't even know why or how I end up coming across all this like TTC coverage on TikTok and like things, but it just kind of popped up probably because I was researching a few things. But at this point, I was just like, starting to get off birth control, learning how to track my cycles naturally, testing my ovulation so that I knew we could make it happen, when we wanted to, because timing for us was a little bit more specific due to Austin's job. So we wanted to plan it where he would be off work for the winter. So, long story short, it was probably about 6 months, and I think we were, using the ovulation sticks. We had tried, I think I read somewhere where if you put progesterone lotion on your wrist um, at 5 DPO, it's supposed to help.
the
If
Mucinex. Did you do the
I
Mucinex?
did not do the Mucinex, but I heard all about the Mucinex.
Mm-hmm.
We tried the Mosey Baby Kit. It's basically mimics the IUI. We tested Austin's sperm at like a CVS sperm test kit, and it came back like low. But I didn't even think, I'm like, oh, it's probably just like a crappy test. It was like $20. It's probably not accurate, right? But that also started to trigger thoughts in my mind as we continued. We got to 8 months. I think we were at about 9 months before I even told anyone outside of you. Like, you were the only one that knew for a very long time. And like my family had asked, and like other people had asked around, like, oh, when are you having kids? And like, I did not think that, I didn't think it was an intention of them trying to be like, okay, when are you having kids? We're expecting it. It was always just like, oh, when it's ready, when it happens, when we want, we're going to focus on this, and then we'll, think about that. Or my
Mm-hmm.
excuse was Austin didn't want kids.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to talk about it, right? Um, but probably November, December 2021, like that 9, 10 month mark, I was like, okay, like this is really, one, starting to get annoying with seeing all the pregnancy tests or pregnancy announcements. And then two, like people kept asking me, and it just came up in casual conversation. Like, and I was like, oh my gosh, I did not realize like how this affects people when you just ask this question. So we had told my family, told Austin's family, and we decided to make an appointment for a consultation with infertility services. And so that was like January of 2022. I'm just trying to paint the timeline here, but
Mm-hmm.
at that initial consult, they were like, "Oh, you're young, you're healthy, get on this diet, take these meds just to like help with your egg quality, and we'll start next steps with your next period." Okay. So, first of all, um, Austin had to do a sperm test, which came back very low sperm count. And then I did like blood work where they tested my AMH levels, which also indicates your ovarian reserve. And so my AMH levels were really low. And so they equated that with my ovarian reserve being low. So basically, I have a low amount of eggs in my body for my age. So we had known, okay, low sperm, low AMH. I'm thinking, worst case scenario, we try an IUI, which is interuterine insemination. I'm like, oh, okay. They just like basically wash the sperm, make sure it's only good moving sperm, and insert it. And I'm like, okay, this will be good. We can get through this. I went to my first appointment because they want to make sure your tubes are also not blocked. So they did a saline sonogram where they push the water through your tubes and in your uterus to make sure everything's clear, nothing's blocked. It is painful.
I know, I remember you telling me that.
Um, like I just remember it was very crampy feeling, and at the end of it, I was just like, I felt like I was going to pass out. But that also was probably because I was told in the same sentence that I needed to move forward with IVF and IUI was not an option. And I was like, this procedure just hurt me. I have too much stress going on. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is cool. So basically, we were told we had to move forward with IVF. That was a very jarring thing because you had basically had to comprehend it and you had to decide to move forward because it's a long process. It does not happen at the next cycle. You have to go through multiple cycles to even get to the point of transferring. And it was a lot.
Well, what is IVF?
In vitro fertilization. So it's a type of fertility treatment where basically they build up your body to produce as many eggs as you can in that cycle. Some people produce a lot of eggs, some people produce very small amount of eggs. Because I have low AMH, I would produce a very small amount of eggs. So they give you infertility drugs to basically stimulate your follicles to grow as many eggs. They take them out and then they inseminate it with the sperm and they grow the embryo in the lab. And at that point, once the embryo is transfer worthy or at a blastocyst stage, then they will insert that back into your uterus after priming your uterus for accepting an embryo. So it's it's a little bit more intense, and basically the embryo is already created before it's in your body. And I've heard many people say that the best place for the embryo to grow is going to be inside your body because that's what it was made to do. So sometimes they do not always grow the best in the labs, but things have improved over time. To cut my story a little bit short before we go into all the other things, basically we went through with an egg retrieval. We retrieved 9 eggs, 8 were fertilized, 1 was transferred, which is Axel. It was transferred to fresh transfer. And then we had 6 frozen and 1 like didn't keep growing. So we basically took the risk. We did not test Axel and just said, okay, this egg came out, we fertilized it, we put it back in me, and he grew into the perfect little baby he
Mhm.
is. I didn't get any of the surprise that you got to do with Rob. I think that was the hardest part for me because I wanted the element of surprise, but I still got a surprise with his gender because we didn't
Yeah.
know that before. So,
Yeah. I mean, the surprise is it's surprising. And it's a very happy moment. It was for me. But I imagine seeing the positive test for you was like just as happy
mhm.
and surprising. So
Yeah, we
there's
were just
there's a
very
small
lucky.
element of surprise.
Very lucky that it even worked on the first try because there are people that go through multiple
Mhm.
rounds, multiple tries, and even like a mock transfer cycle where you basically mock the entire transfer cycle and just to see if something's wrong. Like
Oh.
the meds need to be stronger or something's wrong on the inside to make sure that it's good for the next time. Like I could not imagine doing that. Let's talk a little bit about the negative, like seeing a negative test and what that feels like because I hate it.
It's so disheartening to see a negative test month after month after month. Like, so disheartening. I don't know how you felt, but I got to a point where I was like, man, this is never going to happen. Am I okay? Like, you know, like I think the hardest part, right? And this is the cycle I went through every single time is we would go through the ovulation period and then I was so confident. I was like, this is going to be the cycle. Like, I just have a really good feeling. And then you would test and no. And then it just happened over and over and over again. And it happened much longer for you. And it's just so hard.
Because it just I don't know what it is, but because your body is made to have a baby, that you just get this immediate hope. Like it's
Mhm.
okay, another cycle, another chance. And seeing the negative test is like, okay, someone just ripped my heart out. And now I
Mhm.
have to pretend to put on a happy face and move on with the next cycle. And when I don't know if this happened for you, but when I would see a negative test, I would still have hope for the next day that I'm going to test
Yes.
positive. Like
Uh-huh.
maybe I'm testing too early. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, it like consumes you. It's almost
Well,
scary.
yeah, it really does. My thing is like, and I know you're not supposed to look at the test, right? Like after 5 minutes or something, but I would take a test and I would throw it in the garbage after it read negative, right? And then the next time I was going pee, I would pull it out of the garbage and inspect it again.
Yes. Yes,
And
every
I'm
time.
like, am I sure I didn't see anything? I would use my flashlight. I'm like going by the window.
Yes. And even like, oh, I did that so many times. And after getting a positive pregnancy test now, like next time, I feel like if I don't see a line, like I would just know, but I would
Hmm.
still be like inspecting it and having hope that there would be a line there. But I know when you were pregnant, it's a lot darker. It's very clear. It's not this like indent line that you see, that you might think you see.
Well, even when I was pregnant and I got a positive pregnancy test, I still tested like crazy.
Yes. Yes.
I'm like, oh, it's getting darker.
At
It's
least
it's a true obsession.
probably like 6 or 7 weeks I was testing. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
Oh.
and you got blood work done, and they told you, hey, no, this is real. Where
Mhm.
me, I was like, they're not even gonna see me for 12 weeks.
Yeah, the amount of money you spend on pregnancy tests. Oh, it's scary.
Hmm.
But that also is part of like the 2 week wait because it's the worst wait ever. You just have so much hope and then that I don't even know what it is. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just like, okay, you get to a certain point and you're like, okay, I waited this long and then you have this lost hope and then you're like, I'm ready to do it again. you know?
Hmm.
It's like a mouse running on one of those circle things.
It is. It is. The 2 week wait for me is just going onto my app and being like, okay, I would look and be like, okay, today I'm 60 PO. Okay, good. Just wait 2 more days. Or I just gotta wait 3 more days. And
Yeah.
then I would do that just every day. I would just check right in the morning. I'm like, what DPO am I? Like, I wouldn't know because I didn't check the day
The
before.
night
Like, I don't
before.
know that. um, but yeah,
Would
it's maddening.
would you tell Rob about like what DPO you are and stuff or no, did he not care?
I wouldn't say he didn't care, but I really like didn't. I didn't tell him no.
Okay. Cuz like Austin I would be like, "Hey, we're 5 DPO or 10 DPO," and he'd look at me like pretend to act like, "What DPO are we today?"
Yeah. Aw.
But
No,
like,
Rob would just be like,
no.
"Why are there so many pregnancy tests in the garbage?" It's like, "What is with our garbage?" I'm like,
Ugh, um,
"'Cause I test it in the morning sometimes and at night."
yes, that's what you can do. And you can go through or down so many rabbit holes on TikTok and like I think it really opened my eyes to me once I started experiencing infertility, the amount of people that are experiencing it too,
Mhm.
and the amount of people that like aren't talking about it. It makes me want to talk about it even more because I felt so alone and so scared. And there's
Mhm.
a piece of me that always wants to talk about it, but a piece of me like, oh, I want to surprise someone. I want to keep this like quiet and be surprised, if ever we did it again. But just in general, it's like that constant battle of like emotional and mental toll that you're going
Mhm.
through and other people don't know.
Right, it's a hard thing because there's a lot of stuff online about, oh, don't share if you're pregnant or if you're trying until 12 weeks or second trimester, whatever. There's a lot of that out there, which I understand. I understand because once you do put your personal information out there to friends and family, it becomes like a topic.
Of
that
discussion. Yeah.
of discussion with you in the room and without you in the room, and I think that can just be a really hard pill to swallow. So I totally understand. But then I feel like you're in a position where you're going through something alone. Especially when I think about it. I mean, I'm so lucky I had you. I did tell my parents. We told Rob's parents early, because I just wanted that support. I was going through something for the very first time. I was pregnant, I was trying to conceive for the first time. It was all new to me. And to like have to go through the first 12 weeks completely alone, with your spouse. So I
Hmm.
wasn't completely alone, but they're also not physically going through it.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. I feel like I was open about it to friends and family, like immediately as soon as I found out after like ultrasound confirmation, but I didn't really like announce to the world until the
Mhm.
12-week mark because I didn't care. At 6 weeks, if I lost the baby, it was still, I was pregnant and I was losing this baby. So, like, I was still pregnant. So I don't
Mhm.
care. I didn't care
Yes.
what people had to say. Another thing I wanted to share was the birth control. You get into this infertility, they do all this testing, and then they're like, okay, let's move forward with a transfer and an egg retrieval. Let's put you on birth control. And you're like, I got off birth control to get pregnant. And I was taught my whole life if I'm not on birth control, I'm going to accidentally get pregnant. And
Yeah.
I did not get pregnant for a year. What in the world makes you think I want to go on birth control? But
Well, and
they,
then you have that small amount of hope that it could happen naturally, and they're just taking that away.
yeah, during that time, like leading up to it, yeah. But the reason that they put me on birth control is because my clinic, like they do the cycles at specific time because you have to have the transfers line up so that the doctor can do the transfers on a transfer day. And so if they don't put you on birth control, they don't basically have your cycle lined up and ready and scheduled because what they do with the shots and the medications is and the procedures that you have is basically okay, prior to your egg retrieval, we're going to give you 10 days of medications or 11, whatever your specific thing is from your doctor. And we're going to stimulate your hormone or your eggs until they're ready to be pulled out of you. And then at that exact day, 24 hours before they pull them out of you, they trigger your ovulation. So they're
Mm.
manipulating your body, I guess, technically,
Mhm.
to trigger ovulation. They pull the eggs out, and then at that point, your body is dropping the eggs like it would in normal ovulation because they took them out. So your body is prepping for implantation 5 days later. And so then that's when they insert an egg that had grown to blastocyst at that stage. And even once you get to the point of transfer, you have to then take estrogen to prime your lining. And there could be two, three different ways you take that. Then you have to produce progesterone for the first 10 weeks because the baby does not have the placenta yet, which produces the progesterone, and your body isn't going to automatically produce the progesterone because your whole body was just manipulated and told what to do through this
Mhm.
IVF cycle. So it's a lot. There's a lot of like side effects on every single thing that you read. You're like, oh, what am I doing? And the birth control made me crazy. Like, I was just so emotional and
Mhm.
it's just a lot mentally. So if you have someone that you can, a best friend, a family member that you can tell, even if you want to keep it a secret from the world, it is good to talk to people because it's a lot.
I can we like go back
Yeah.
just a minute? I want to talk about a fun experience we had together.
We've had lots of fun experiences together, which is why we love sharing it with the world.
So, me and Alyssa were traveling together. And what stage were you at this point?
I had had the transfer.
You had you're right, yeah. So there
Yeah.
were the progesterone shots, is that what?
Progesterone and oil shots. And we were at the point where you have to keep taking them until they confirm pregnancy at that point.
Yes. So we're we're traveling. We're in a hotel together, and Alyssa has to have this shot
I'm sorry, this is just funny.
in her butt, which she couldn't do on her own. So she asked me to do it, and I was like, of course, this is my dream. And she's like, it's gonna be fine. You just stick it in, push the medication in. You're good to go. I
Meanwhile,
just want
it's
to,
like a needle this big.
it's a huge, huge, huge needle. And now I'm just like really nervous already. Sticking this big needle into your butt.
And we had to do it at a specific time too. So we
Hmm.
had to be like, okay, and then we like ran and did it at a specific time. So Megan was even under more pressure.
Yeah, so she was like, "Oh, you gotta do it. No, it's fine. Just blah." And I'm like, "Okay." So, so I do it, and she starts bleeding. Just starts bleeding like crazy. She said nothing was gonna happen. Oh my god! And I'm like, "You're bleeding." Like not even a. It wasn't just like a drip of blood. I hit something, and
It
it
was,
was coming
yeah,
out. Oh my gosh. And didn't you say that only happened like one other time?
that was the first time it had ever happened. And then it continued, like it happened, I think one or two times to Austin after that. But the first time it had ever happened was when you did it the first time.
We were like, what the heck? So we're like in this public restroom together, right? We were in a public restroom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we were in an escape room.
an escape room. We were in an escape room. Trying to get this done quickly before the escape room. And oh my gosh, I'll
Uh,
never forget it.
it was going everywhere, and Megan's like, "What do I do?"
Oh man. Yeah, so that could happen if you have to do these dang shots. So just FYI if you're having a friend do it.
Yeah,
Disclaimer.
it
You
might bleed
could bleed
everywhere.
everywhere.
Well, then, of course, like if it was Austin, I'd be like, okay, just wipe it up, you know. But I don't
Mhm.
want everyone touching my blood or Megan to get my blood on her. I'm like, okay, and I had like a huge blood stain on the back of my leggings, so I'm pretty sure I like pulled my shirt down to like cover it or something. I don't know.
I don't remember either, but oh man, that was wild. Good times.
Yes, good times. That was an experience. So
Hmm.
beware of the PIO shots.
Yep.
Okay. From an infertility perspective, one of the other last quick things I wanted to mention is depending on the clinic, sometimes you have a lot of interaction with the doctor and sometimes you don't. So it's almost like I had my initial consult with my doctor, I had my procedure with my doctor, and then I didn't talk to my doctor. I talked through this whole team of nurses. I didn't talk to them until like they do like the final confirmation before transfer or at egg retrieval, things like that. And so that was just an experience I wasn't ready for because this was the first time I was going through something like this. And I was like, I want to know everything about it. I want to know if I'm doing this right. I want to know, I want all my questions answered. And so the nurses were very great, and the nurses are a great resource for that. And that's why they have that in place.
Hmm.
But I was just very turned off in the beginning because the doctor wasn't answering all this and like coming to my attention for it. Um,
Yeah.
but I understand it now after going through it. So if you start this process and feel that way, just know that that's why they have the team of nurses to help you walk through everything. Last topics that I can think about that would be helpful is there are different diagnoses for infertility. It can be male factor or female factor. And basically, what that means is if it's the male that's causing the infertility or the female. Our specific scenario, even though we both had something that was, I guess, wrong or off about us, ours was diagnosed as male factor infertility
Oh.
because Austin's was like a greater impact, I think, to the infertility. So that is just something to know, but that is how they reported it on insurance. Speaking of insurance and financials, that is something that is very hard to find is infertility coverage. And a lot of people, I feel like, have to leave jobs to go to another job to find infertility coverage.
Yeah.
And even going to my appointments, I just remember like that you would sign in and then they would call you up and be like, okay, this is your outstanding bill, like to other people. And I was very blessed that we had insurance coverage for it, but it was just like, that's like that person had to pay that bill before they could do the next step in the procedure. And if any of that gets messed up, it can impact when you transfer, when you get pregnant, things like that. And that's just a very hard thing for people to go through
So they
mentally. And
make you pay before you can move forward?
yeah, usually like you have to pay for your like outstanding balance before you can do your next procedure.
Man, that's
it is
crazy.
it is crazy too, like it is like upwards of like 26, $27,000 just for
Mhm.
IVF and like testing the embryos that you have, and that's only covered up to a certain amount of embryos. So if you retrieve 30, it could be like,
Yeah.
an extra $10,000. I don't know.
Well, then
Everything.
you have to pay to freeze everything, right? In a storage?
Yep, you have to pay for storage, and then they usually like to have, if you have low sperm count, stored sperm as well. So you got to pay storage for that. It is the, I mean, they probably make great money and they make people so happy with what they do, and their work, is so helpful to people and helping them have families. But the amount of money that goes into infertility centers and the amount of lack of insurance coverage is insane. Oh, it just riles me up.
I know. Hopefully, it's something that is getting more coverage. I mean, I can say the last few employers I've been at have covered some, but it still sometimes can be very difficult to find,
Hmm.
and to make that decision to like have to move jobs just to find coverage because you can't afford spending 20 grand out of pocket to have a child is just outrageous to me. It's outrageous. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just crazy to me the things that I could go on a rant, but the things that like healthcare covers and don't cover, like it's all healthcare and it should all be included and
Hmm.
covered. Like it's a
Yeah,
scam, I swear.
I agree. And it's just like the thought that someone has to go through these experiences, and I feel for anyone that has to go through these experiences because I know firsthand just how it feels. But bringing awareness to it, reaching out to employers and like trying to get it added to insurance. I mean, I think there will be a movement. There is a movement. You've already seen changes over the past probably 5 to 6 years, I would say. It is just, it's scary.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that also is scary to even notify your employer, because if you are going through it, then are you, you know, taking a benefit that they might, you might lose your job or they might not keep you because they know that you're going through this. I don't know. This was always something for me, and probably you would feel differently because I know you just have a different thought process.
Mhm.
But I feel so like scared or like ashamed to talk about it with my employer, where I know I shouldn't feel that way, but it's just like that scared, like, oh, if someone knows, they could take this away from me, or they could take my job
Mhm.
away from me, or my benefits away from me. And I shouldn't feel like that because most employers are supportive of it.
You shouldn't feel like that, but the problem is that there is, even if it is a small percentage of employers that could treat you differently because of it, that in itself could be scary. Now, I didn't have to go through what you went through, so I don't know like if I would be open about it because there's a lot more to lose if you were to get
Hmm.
fired or something like that. But I don't know. I can understand your perspective of like not being open about it, which is hard too, because if you're not in a situation where you can easily go to doctor's appointments, because there's a lot of appointments you had to go to. And if you can't be open about that to your employer or feel comfortable telling your employer about it, like it makes it very difficult to go to the ton of appointments that
Yeah.
you have to attend.
Yeah. And I mean, at the point in time, it was never anything against my employer. It was never like, oh, I didn't want them to know. It's just something. when people aren't ready to announce that they're pregnant until 12
Mhm.
weeks, you might not be ready to announce that you're like, hey, I'm having trouble getting pregnant and I have to go through infertility and
Yeah.
attend all of these appointments multiple times per week. And it might affect when I do and don't work.
Right.
But I think to wrap it up, we can talk about what mom era we are in this week.
My mom era this week. Ooh. My mom era, Eleanor is combining two words.
Oh,
Yeah. So she has started, now, I wouldn't say like she's combining any word together, but she can say more and then what she wants.
oh,
So she really loves this song, Johnny, Johnny, Yes, Papa by Lulu Kids. And so she says, more papa, more papa, more papa, which is good.
yeah.
Or she loves bubbles, so she'll say more bubbles, more bubbles. So she's like really good at combining more with the second word. And then she's also saying hi. So she could say, hi, daddy. Hi,
Mm.
Dieter, which is one of our cat's names. So she's like combining multiple words, which is just a really fun era to be in. She's like actually putting together real language.
Oh, that's so fun. We're kind of in a similar mom era. We are very much interpreting a lot more sign language now.
Ooh,
And
yay.
we do not, or not we, Axel does not speak as often or well as Eleanor, but he is starting to say, I started saying, like you were saying, the hot, and I was like blowing on. And
Uh-huh.
so I would do that on food, or I would do that on the little fireplace we have downstairs. He always
Mhm.
turns it up to high and then stands in front of it with his hand. And I'm like, that's hot. And hot, and I blow. And
Mhm.
so then yesterday I was like, that's hot. And he looks back at me and he just opens his mouth. He goes, ha, ha. Like
Aw.
that was like his noise for me blowing. It's like,
Yeah. Oh,
and
that's
then
so cute.
before he wouldn't really do the eat.
Mhm.
I don't know what it was, but if I say, okay, we're going to go eat, he'll just go like
He'll
that.
do it. Mhm.
And then if he's done and we keep feeding him, he'll just start doing all done on his own now instead of me having to say, "Are you all done?" Definitely picking up
Yay.
on the sign language, and it's kind of weird. He like screams like up because he up
Mm.
up 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 up. And
Oh, Eleanor does that too.
I'm like, okay, I'm getting you. You're getting up. And
So funny. She does that too. Like hers, she has a nice up. So when she's not upset, it's like up, up. But when she's like, get me up right now, it's like up. And she like, it's so like, ugh.
no, it's whenever he sees me, like I'm changing him on the changing table, and he's like or like on his bike, he's like
hmm
I'm like, okay,
hmm
you don't you sound like a seagull.
You know what else Eleanor started doing this week too? Is going from sitting to standing without using anything.
Ooh,
hmm And she'll look at me. I'm like, yay! And then she drops down like all happy. So, yeah.
yeah, Axel will do that. Well, he won't sit to stand. He'll stand to sit.
hmm
And I will try to just let go of him. And when he doesn't realize that I let go of him, he stands perfectly
Yeah.
fine, bends down perfectly fine. But once he notices that I let go of him, he's like, "Okay, mom, I'm done. Like, you're not holding me up anymore. I don't know how to stand anymore."
Yeah. What is this thing I'm doing?
Yeah. So hopefully with daycare, he'll see other people standing and walking.
hmm
And I mean, it all comes with time. I'm not rushing anything at any
No,
point, but it's fun
no.
to watch it all.
It is. All the stages are fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in and letting us share our experiences trying to conceive, and Alyssa, your experiences with infertility and IVF. Please use us as a resource if you have any questions about trying to conceive or going through IVF. Our DMs are always open, or you can email us at.
momerapodcast@gmail.com.
Okay.
We will see you guys next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.